Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis are set to fight on April 22nd in Las Vegas. These two have had quite the rivalry, and this matchup has been brewing for a long time. Both men are undefeated, and both men are extremely dangerous. Davis in his 28 fights gathered an impressive number of 26 knockouts, while Ryan has 19 knockouts in 23 fights. Those numbers are above average for the lightweight division, as together their finish rate is 88%. It's a thrilling fight, and we are all eager to see it, but this sort of fight usually doesn't happen. Boxing is an amazing sport with a history of great fights. From the Thrilla in Manila, to Hagler vs. Hearns, to Tyson vs. Holyfield. And in more recent history, an example of a super fight is Canelo vs. Triple G. But the number of fights where the best fight the best has dropped significantly in this modern era of boxing. One of the most hyped up bouts of all time, Pacquiao vs. Mayweather, didn't happen until they were both out of their primes, which just left the fans unsatisfied with the outcome, and it raised a question. What if they fought a couple of years sooner? And the same thing is happening to boxing's greatest superstars we have today. I get it, there's a big number of organizations and promoters whose main goal is to make as much money as they can, without losing the undefeated record of their beloved fighters. But it's not rare we hear a big fight has fallen through because of contracts and negotiating. That's exactly why this fight between two undefeated stars is something we should all appreciate, because who knows when it's going to happen next. Ryan Garcia's last fight was in July of last year against Javier Fortuna. Garcia's speed is something we are all used to, but what we didn't expect is his composure, improved defense, and his maturity. From the start of the bout, he managed distance well, with great left hook counters when Fortuna tried to attack. In the fourth, Ryan quickly closed the distance and hit his opponent with a devastating left hook to the body, which made Fortuna take a knee. But the undefeated prospect didn't rush to finish the fight. He remained calm while slowly pressuring the veteran behind his jab. He knew he would get another chance to get the finish. And already in the next round, he dropped Fortuna with a quick left hook to the chin. It's almost impossible to see the actual punch connecting without looking at the slow-mo. But again, Fortuna got up. And once more, Garcia didn't rush. He knew the end was near, and so did his opponent, but just not yet. The sixth round came about, and after approximately 15 seconds into the round, Fortuna was back on the floor. But this time, he had no intentions of going back up to continue fighting. And once more, it was Ryan's perfect left hook that sent him to the canvas. His showing of sportsmanship and checking on the hurt opponent stated only one thing, that he was here to do business. And in the post-fight interview, it was clear that Ryan is extremely confident in his boxing skills, and that he's in the right spot to fight an elite opponent in Gervonta Davis.
The fight speaks for itself. I don't need to say anything. You've seen how I fought.
Ryan's also said this.
I told you when I face harder punchers, I box better.
And Gervonta Davis is definitely a big puncher. His last fight was in January of this year against Hector Luis Garcia. Unlike Ryan's last fight, we didn't see anything out of the ordinary, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Tank is not a fighter who will dominate the fight straight out of the gate, and this fight was no different. It was a close fight through all 8 rounds, but with every round, Davis was becoming more and more dangerous. Tank, like always, showed great composure with slow, calculated pressure that really started to show its presence in the final 3 rounds. It almost looked like Tank just warmed up in the 6th round, and from that point on, it was his fight to lose. After a brutal 8th round ending from Davis, Garcia sat on his stool and decided that he has had enough. While in this fight, he perfectly demonstrated the previously mentioned calculated pressure. In the fight before, he showed us something entirely different, except the outcome. On the 28th of May, Gervonta Davis was set to fight Rolando Romero, but this wasn't just any fight. Their beef started back in 2017 when Davis failed to show up to a pair of scheduled sparring sessions, which didn't sit well with Romero. That's where the first problems really started. From that point on, Romero has been often vocal about Davis's looks and his allegedly padded record. So there was a lot of pressure on both fighters to come out on top. In this fight, Davis couldn't do what he normally does. He couldn't pressure Romero since Romero was the one who was pressuring him. And considering there's a big size difference between the two men, Davis had to adjust his game plan. Tank was getting hit with big shots, but it made no difference. It was obvious that Davis is the more composed fighter, with confidence oozing out of him. He even talked to both corners while fighting.
More punch is gonna land.
He was outboxing the much bigger opponent, hitting him with quick counters and pivoting out of bad positions, which led to this moment.
Fights we've seen that he seems kind of awkward, but in this fight he's not looking. There's a big left hand.
A perfectly timed left-hand counter ended the fight. Once again, Davis showed how much of a game changer his power truly is. Garcia and Davis are both extremely fun to watch because of their styles and genetic gifts. Both fighters are very popular, and both are considered the elite of their weight divisions. But this fight is far more important than you may think. Here's why. Just like I mentioned in the first part of the video, what makes this fight so special is that these kinds of fights rarely happen. We rarely get to see two undefeated prospects go at it, because it's a huge risk for both parties involved. But if we take a look at the biggest boxing legends in history, there are only two big-name fighters with undefeated records, Rocky Marciano and Floyd Mayweather. Almost all of the boxers in history have losses on their records, but that doesn't impact their greatness. More often than not, a record that has a few losses can be far more valuable than a perfect, undefeated record, because that first record consists of tougher competition. Let's take UFC as an example. The UFC currently has 12 unique champions, and the number of those champions who have an undefeated record is 0. All of them have at least one loss, and it really doesn't matter because they're champions. They fought their way back from those losses, and the saying, "you're only good as your last fight," couldn't be more true in this case. However, there's a bigger problem that stops the boxing world from seeing their favorite fighters go head-to-head, and it's too many organizations and a big number of selfish promoters. That's why the already mentioned UFC is getting so much traction in the last couple of years. It's an organization that consists of most of the best fighters in the world, so when they want to make a fight between two champions, it's easy to set it up. They don't have to think of other promotions and their best fighters, since they have enough value by themselves. This leads to a huge number of superstar fights, which fans absolutely love. In boxing, that couldn't be farther from reality than it is. We've been waiting for Spence and Crawford to fight for quite some time, but judging how things are right now, it's probably not happening. This is definitely a shame since both are in their prime, and both are so dominant that it doesn't make sense for them to fight anyone else but each other. That's why Davis and Garcia fighting could change the sport of boxing for the better. Not instantly, but it could be an example that the best fighting the best is always the supreme option when it comes to making money and satisfying the fans, no matter the outcome of the fight. If they both show up and put up a great fight, neither Garcia's nor Davis's career should be diminished in any way, and the fight could open plenty of other doors in terms of matchmaking in the future. The question of who's the likely winner is a hard question to answer. They are both very dangerous with completely different styles. Ryan's size and speed make him a hard enigma to solve, but it wouldn't be the first time we see Davis adapting in the middle of the fight and landing his crushing punches. And if he does, will Ryan be able to withstand that kind of punishment? Honestly, it's hard to imagine Tank losing. I'm not saying it's impossible, but when he seems to be in a hard position, and when you're thinking that he could be on the brink of losing the fight, his opponent is on the canvas desperately trying to get back up. But no one should overlook Garcia's out-of-this-world speed and his punishing left hook. So I really don't know for sure, but one thing I do know, we should all prepare for a spectacle.